Fine-tuning Remote Desktop Manager. So we'll go through a few little quick tips and tricks we can look at. And I'll also ask from your experience what kind of problems you've seen, and it maybe help you out with how we can fix those or alleviate some of those bottlenecks for you while running a Remote Desktop Manager. So one thing we'll be talking about is the offline cache, how to enable it, when to enable it, what it actually does for you, and how it can help you get things a bit quicker. And of course, a big part of making RDM faster is trying to keep your data as small as possible. In version 13, we took away the RTF notes from the ability now. And the good reason for that is some people were putting notes, RTF notes of the upwards of 15 megabytes worth of data per session. Screenshots, and we've had customers that had screenshots of Word put in the notes in the RTF. So if you do this for a few hundred sessions, 15 megs comes out quickly to a few hundred megs, and things get really slow. So we turn that into a note, a text note, and now we have our little wiki page. You can add some more text and images at that point. So things you can do and keep in mind. Sometimes the app has the ability to do certain things, and some people will do things that weren't quite designed to do it that way. So those are the things we'll talk about quickly. And pack database and the custom image stuff. And it usually comes down to session count also. 10,000 sessions in RDM, good luck. A few thousand sessions, you'll be fine. But Ryan, you're at 10,000, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's one repository.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So repositories can split them up too, and they can. So to figure out what's going on, why it's slow, or where it's slow, what's going on, the profiler will help you out. Usually we have a support ticket with Devolution that says it's slow to load. The first thing that support will ask for you is give me a profiler dump. That profiler dump will land on my desk, and I will look at it, and then we'll diagnose from there. But I'll also show you what I look for, what yourself can look for, and figure out maybe what's going on in your data to make it so slow. So this is not me. I'm not that much of a hacker, but yeah. So the offline cache, use it seriously. It will alleviate a lot of your bottlenecks. There are caveats to look at for when using the offline cache. There are certain actions you can perform during the day that will invalidate everyone's offline cache. And they're relatively simple, okay? What happens is there's only so much logic we can put in the offline cache, and things like modifying users. Things like an upgrade is not so bad, but modifying users or roles will wipe everybody's cache, okay? Because if you modify a role, we'd have to reapply that role to X amount of people. We don't know who was where before, so we don't take a chance. Security-wise, it's easier for us to wipe everything from everyone's machine and reload everybody from start, okay? There's also like data source settings. If you go change your data source settings, it will invalidate your cache. Data source settings is not so bad because it's not something you'll change every day. But knowing that users can clear your cache, it might be an interesting thing to do your users maybe late at the day or early in the morning, not every half hour during your day, every day for the whole day. If you can kind of batch those up, you'll alleviate a lot of these problems, okay? So it's good to know. Good to know where the file is being stored. So it's usually gonna be, and there's a WAC missing there. So it's just gonna be a local app data Devolutions Remote Desktop Manager or Password Vault Manager, or free depending which one. There's four of them there. They'll be stored in the GUID and the files will be there. And also give you a few tips on things to watch for. So we'll do all the slides and I'll do the demo after. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate. Lift your hand right away and we'll go through those. And we'll do questions at the end also. Who here is using the offline cache? Read, write, read only? Okay. And of course, we went through this session count, notes, and that kind of stuff. So use so there's a few things you can do. So on this session, you can put in documents. So documents get tied to a session, but they're not actually in your local cache and they're actually not fetched on demand. They're fetched on demand, not every time. So if you have to attach network diagrams, keys, that kind of stuff, attach them. Don't go copy the text or screenshot the Word document and put them in the old time RTF notes. It's all logical stuff to do, we've had clients that haven't gone that way yet. There's a few sessions that can help you out too. Version 13 has the password list now. So instead of having 10 sessions with 10 different username and passwords, you can have a password list that contains all 10 within one. So that can narrow down your sessions count, that kind of stuff. That can be helpful to do. The other, and we'll show you those, is the who's using the open with template. Anybody use the open with template? Ryan is? Anybody else? So the open with template is an interesting one. So if you have a machine that you're connecting to, let's say SSH, and it's an SSH server, and you're always going to connect to it with SSH, but once in a while you want to kid the web interface, or once in a while you want to do a telnet, or once in a while you want to do another type of connection. So instead of having, a lot of people they'll set their template and they'll say, well, from my server, I want these 5 connections. So for every server that they service, they'll have all 5 connections, but they'll rarely use all 5. 100 servers times 5, you have 500 sessions. Why bother? Create the one master one, the one you'll be using, and create the with template instead. And when you want to open it, just hit the with template, choose your template, and open it that way. Okay? So you can minimize your session count at that point. If it's a once in a while thing. If you want to do it every time, do the session. Okay? So those are the things you need to look for. Virtual folders. So that's that. So let's do a few demos. Let's see if we can get this working. Any questions up to now? We're good? Have a small data set, 61 rows. Anybody running a 61 records, 61 sessions? Nobody, right? So this is small. So this is just a demo database here we have. We have a few things. Sorry?
Multiply by 100.
Multiply by 100, so 600. So 600 is not bad. Under 3,000?
No.
6,000? Yeah, 6,000 gets a bit large. If you can, start using repositories. And I'll show you those if you're using it. Ryan, your repository is too big, you can't split it up.
So the performance actually isn't that bad
Yeah.
right now, but I also don't have the full user base on there, so we'll see how it performs.
The amount of users going in is not so bad. It's the amount of data coming back from the server. The database end is actually barely need any power on the database end. We've only had a few clients have issues on the database end, and most of the time it's because there's a network connection issue between the server and the client. And I can show you what it would look at in the profiler. You'll see it right away if it happens. That's not so bad. So number of clients won't be an issue. It's just really the data size that's going to kill you. And at 6,000, just loading the tree, and I'll show you, I have one at 5,000. Loading the tree takes about 3/4 of a second. So every action you do that reloads the tree, you're losing 3/4 of a second there. So that's where, there's not much we can do with the nature of tree view. We can't load it any faster. We can always load it faster, but there's certain things we end up being able to do once in a while. Part of what I do every day is I go through, new features get added in, I go through the code, where can I speed it up? New feature gets added in, slows it down, where can I go speed it up? That's what I do on a regular basis. 13, a lot of features were put into 13. I haven't finished my loop of speeding everything up again. So 13 right now is a little on the slow end. It's going to get faster as we go along. Okay? So stuff like this. So I have an RDP connection here. I can do open with template. I can open up as a telnet or SSH session if I had SSH host on there. So when it's a once in a while thing, don't go create an extra session for this telemark DC1 and 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 sessions. Okay, there's no need for it. So you can see yourself at version 13. You can hide some of these buttons now. You've seen that feature. You can, by default, people probably on the forum. By default, you don't get all these options. This one's actually disabled down here. You have to go in and re-enable it now. We're trying to streamline our interface, which is quickly here. Dashboard. Dashboard. Allow special actions in dashboard. So if you don't have them in there, you can put them in. They will be enabled. So that's one of them. What else did we talk about? Let me just bring my PowerPoint up here. Go through those again. Okay, so let's start with the offline cache. So you probably noticed that in the last version, we removed some of a small feature from the offline cache. You can't configure it anywhere in here anymore. Oh my God! I should set my other monitor as my primary monitor.
Between intelligent and simple.
There you go. Yeah. So you can only set intelligent and simple now. Where is it? There you go. So what happened before is there's 4 places to set up the offline cache, but there's only 3 places where the admin had easy access to it. In the data source settings, You can do it in the roles and users, and you can do it in the policy, group policy, thank you. Group policy. The fourth place was in the config. But the config is unique to everyone's machines. So if you have to go change that all over the place, you have to physically go to the machine or ask the user to go change it, right? So now by default, it's always going to be intelligent by default, okay? And the only reason you want to turn it off if you're on somebody else's machine, so if you're going to your mother's place and you need to set up RDM because there's an emergency, it's the only computer you have access to, you don't want to leave your data cache on her machine in case a virus were scanned through that machine. So then disable at that point. But there's no other reason if it's a secure machine to disable that. Unless you're doing it via group policy or you're doing it via the users or the roles or that kind of stuff, okay? So we took it out of here to simplify the controlling at the network, at the administration of the company-wide. So we have it, right now it's open, it's read-only. Why? Because the data set settings and the user settings are set up to read-only and the service is set to intelligent, okay? So if ever you're not seeing, I can't go offline or I can't go read right offline, go look here and it'll tell you exactly where it's configured differently or the way you're not expecting it to be configured. That's the first thing to look at. If you want to look at the file, you can quickly, you actually control click on here, you actually get the path to the file, where the file's at, I believe. It's supposed to. Oh, we don't anymore. You get something else, interesting. What's the double click? Anyways, it used to be there. All right, so that's that. What else do we want here? Here, yeah, so let's look at how the cache actually works. So right now, if I were to refresh here, well, it just checked the server, 8 milliseconds, we knew nothing had to be done, right? There's nothing to be done. It went to the server said, you're up to date, everything you have, you're done. So on a normal day-to-day basis, somebody's doing this, if they're doing edit, they don't have to do much. The session opened up. What did it do? Well, it did another check. Is the session up to date? Go open the form and we're done. So we're talking really quickly when the cache is open, right? If you don't have the cache open, it's going to be much slower. If I were to start the second one, let me just start the second one here. I'll go change the setting from that one to another one. And I'll show you what happens here. So the cache, the way it's set up, a session changes, it's notified. It goes, what happened since I've last checked in? Oh, one session has changed. Let me synchronize that one session and let's keep on going. But that means a tree reload. So at 10,000 sessions, you're looking at about just a 1 second to reload that tree for that one session that changed, right? But there's not much we can do about that one. Reloading the tree on the fly without having to refresh it out is a very difficult task, and it has never been implemented. So you can do one thing though. You could turn off refresh before edit, right? So you do an edit, it won't do a refresh to the server before. It will let you edit and then refresh after the edit instead of before and after. So if ever that becomes an issue, you can do that. So let me just go here. Let me just change this guy here. Let me change this to -2. So I've changed it here. You've done your work. So we can clear that. If I hit refresh here, we'll see, boom, it's done. The tree load, well, the tree didn't do much because it's a small tree. We look here, it said, did I have any changes? Yes, I got changes. The data changed. No security change. So the security change, if I change a user or role or data source settings, that one would have been flagged out. That would have been reload everything, right? So we've only detected here a data session change. We can recover from that, we can do it. So we went to get that one session from the server. It only took 14 milliseconds for my servers on my machine, so we're looking at that there, the problem. Total time for the actual load is 48 milliseconds, and then we reloaded the tree. And we wrote it back. On the background thread, we write it back to the offline cache, okay? So the time down here is not so bad because we don't even see this, it's on the background thread. It will slow down your computer a bit, but for one session, it's not a big deal, okay? That's when the cache is working fine. People that are on the forum once in a while know that if ever you have an issue with your cache, what do? Clear your cache completely. How do you do that? Anybody know?
Control F5.
Control F5, control click here. Boom. Now if you look up here, what do we see? Reload, force true. So that's a force reload. Reload everything. Clear it out and start over again, right? So we'll see that the entire load here, from start to finish, took 181 milliseconds, and 99 sessions came out. A lot of these are non-sessions or macro scripts and tools, that kind of stuff. And then we reloaded the tree. So this is a small data source. So things to look for on the 10,000 session, if you have a lot of macro script tools. The reason that we have a lot of is we load in here the macro script tools. if you have over 100 macroscript tools right now, there's an issue. The right-click menu will take about a second to show up. I found this while doing the demo, right? We will fix that because it should not be a second to do the right-click menu. But because we're loading that macroscript tools, it was taking a second to load the demo. For this demo here, the other days, that's what I did is I deleted all the macroscript tools, except for a few. And I go, oh, it's fast again. In the real world environment, we don't want to do that, so we will be fixing that once we get back to the office. I didn't have time to fix it for here. So let me just go on a different subset here. So this is more of the same data, but much bigger. I just copied the sessions over and over and over and over again, and I threw them in other here. I just threw over and over and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste. I could have written a big fancy script to populate it, but I didn't want to. So if we look here, oh, we have a comic section here. I'm running 2 RDMs, so I couldn't open up the COM port for that. That's normal. So let me just clear that out. So if I do a refresh here, it's on a big data source, 5,000 machines, but we're still looking at 13 milliseconds. So that's why I'm telling you, if you have 10,000 sessions, if they don't change every few minutes, it's not the end of the world. And if they do change every few minutes, it's only a session here and there, it's not the end of the world either. Once they're loaded in, it's not so bad. You will get the hit from the reloading of the tree. So let me just do a full refresh here, and we'll see what 5,000 session looks like on a reload of a tree. So the reload of the tree took about half a second here, right? So it gets painful at the half-second mark. This here is a playlist session. Have you everybody used a playlist session? So the playlist session allows you to link multiple sessions together. When you hit that play, it's going to play multiple sessions. Well, within that, it has a tree view, right? So guess what? How long is that going to take to load? Another second there. So hitting properties on this guy is slow. There's actually a bug I'm going to have to fix. Check. It's actually going to load the tree 3 times. So if we take this out of the way, it loaded the tree 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. Right? So we use the profiler regularly to find out what's going on in the back end. What's going on with the code? Is it optimal? Are people going to get these issues? Now this is not an RD. If this was an RDB session, I wouldn't have had that. Because that session type itself has a list in there 3 times. So these are the kind of things we can see slow. All right? But as you can see, because we have the sessions in cache, we're okay. We're not getting the hit of getting those sessions every time. Because we have to go get them, we have to decrypt them, we have to deserialize all sessions all the time, and then rebuild the tree. Okay? So that's that. So if I were to rename, so this is the same data source, but 2 data sources on the same backend. So I'm going to load both of them in memory here. So this is the same sessions here that I have here. If I were to rename this Windjammer here, well, Windjammer has a few thousand sessions underneath it. Well, the way the folders are built, if I rename the root folder, it has to retouch and change every session underneath, right? So that's going to take a few seconds to propagate down. And somebody else doing a refresh on that end, he's going to get 300 sessions refresh, 400 sessions refresh, 300 more sessions refresh. So those refreshes are going to be long to do. So keep in mind, if you start renaming your sessions at the root, you're affecting a lot of sessions all the way down, right? Usually you set up your roots from the beginning where your main folders, and you add your sessions in, you won't see that issue. So those are things to look at or figure out if you have a lot of users and a lot of data. Do you have a question? Yes, okay. Things to look for at that point that can speed you up. Okay? I won't bother doing it, but there's that. Has anybody ever used a profiler to look at their data? Here's how, okay. What else do we got here? What else do we have? So, yeah, so here's the same data, but now I split it up into repositories. And so it's much faster for me to have 3 data sources than to have 1 data source for all 5,000 sessions. And if you can split up your data in repositories, do. What do repositories give you? Well, the nice thing with repositories is that the users span all repositories. So you manage your users once, you manage your roles once, you manage your database when you only have 1 database, but you have 3 different views on your data. You control who has data, who has which view to which data. So you have to create everyone 3 times, because you can create 3 databases, but then you have to create every user 3 times. You have to create your roles 3 times. And the overhead of doing that is a bit more work. By doing the repositories, you can just split the data out without having to redo all your user and that kind of stuff. Okay? Anybody using repositories here? It's using everything. All right.
So what advantage would repositories have on a smaller database?
And small, like a few hundred rows, few thousand
Yeah.
rows? Nothing really. Unless you, no. If
Okay.
you're gonna do 3 repositories and only give somebody access to 1 repository, the same thing as saying I'm gonna create 1 repository with all 3 subfolders there, and I'm gonna secure that you only see 1 folder, the outcome is gonna be the same. They're gonna get their few hundred sessions that they have a right to get to. Repositories when your data is really big. So you might want to say, I have an internal repository and external repository. So you kind of really split the line between what's internal and what's external.
So 1,000 rows?
2,000-3,000 is fine.
2,000-3,000.
Over 5,000 starts getting clunky.
Okay.
You might want to keep it underneath. If you can split it up, go ahead. But under 2,000, I wouldn't really bother. As long as everything's tagged and named properly, you can find your servers quickly. There's no real reason to split it up at that point. Our goal is try always to get 5,000 under every action you do on the data source that has 5,000 sessions. Our goal is to get everything sub-second reaction. So you click on properties, you click on run, you click on delete, you click on something. Everything should be sub-second. Because the human being after a second becomes impatient. We're at that point now where a second is long. So that's the goal. We don't always hit it, but that's always our goal. So if you're telling us on the forum, this and this is slow, we'll ask for a dump, and we'll try to figure out what's going on. Okay. If you start seeing stuff like the top part is your. Let me go clear this out. Let me just reload this guy. So if you start looking at, so the data gets loaded here. This is going to the server. If you start seeing here over 2, 3, 4, 5 second stuff, there's issues somewhere. Even if you have big data, you shouldn't get to 5 seconds. The data is actually getting pulled out here. So this is getting it out of the database and decrypting everything. It didn't take that long. So if you're seeing this much higher than this, you either have latency issues on your network, you're losing packets and have to do retries, that kind of stuff. And we've seen clients have this, where you would hit the server and it would take 10 seconds for the result to come back. Not normal. Not normal at all. And we asked them, did you have any issues with your network? No, my network's fine, network's fine. We connected with them and then realized, no, you had issues, you were missing packets and whatnot, and routing wasn't done properly, and you weren't hitting your server efficiently. The queries we run on the back end on SQL Server are not quite trivial, but almost trivial. So the server itself is very, very rarely the issue. It could be running on the VM, it could be running almost anywhere, it's going to perform properly. As long as you can connect to it with a reliable connection, you'll be fine. Let's go look at some of the session types. Something that I was telling you about is the password list. Password list, where did the password list go? Password list. So you can create password lists here and have, so if you have, let's say, you're a repository of some sort, like an SVN or a Git, you can have all your users from your SVN file here and it'd be one password list instead of having one session per. And what happens when you link this to a session, it'll tell you which one you want to pick, and it's going to drop down. You pick whichever user you want, and we'll connect to it. Or you can say, as you specify your RDP, you can say, well, take that password list, take S. Lavergne as my credentials, and go on. So you can kind of group them together, and you can minimize your sessions at that point. So kind of interesting. Not used for every scenario, but can be useful for certain scenarios. Like we use it for our SVN, so everybody has access to the SVN to check in and commit our code. Well, everybody has their password, and we use that, we put them in here, and we have access to them. If you, I forgot my SVN password, well, we can get it out of there and give it to them, so you can configure their stuff.
Can we store more information about the user than just his username and password?
In here?
Yeah?
Yeah, you put this username and password description for the password list. But this would be like, let's say your SVN. So let's say this is my SVN, the domain is whatever. I can say my user is Lavergne, and the password that they have on that machine is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and off I go. And then you can have all, employees in here, that kind of stuff, and you can link to it after. You can.
Because I'm creating one session per user because I'm keeping all their phone numbers and address and whatever.
Yeah, well, exactly. In that case, yes. If you're doing a contact information, yes, you can do contact information. But see, you might have, if you have a Git account and an SVN account and another account, that user might have multiple passwords, and you might want to wrap all company-wide together. It's not useful for everything, but it can be useful for certain things. So you can say this is one machine, and these are all my accounts on that one machine that I can get on that one machine. and put all the passwords there if you want. So you can kind of help you out that way. Which other one do we have?
Do the private credentials also count in as sessions?
Sorry, yes, credential sessions, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So other things we can look at, so we have a few tools. Where do you want to go? Let me go full screen here. So for people that have been running for a while, a few things you can do. So the path database, let me not do it on this one because it's a bit longer. Let me do it on a smaller one. So the sessions were stored as XML, right? So we take the data, we XML and we serialize it out, and we encrypt it, we throw it in the database. Part of what we do is as we add features, we add nodes to that XML. Sometimes we have old nodes that kind of just stay there because they're not used anymore, but there's no real way for us to clean them out. So once in a while, it's always a good thing to do is to go run this tool here, analyze what's going on. So if ever we store the XML of the data, we also store a little XML that's also encrypted, which is the metadata. The metadata which allows us to have, if you're running DVLS and company, right? So if you're running the sort of server, we'll get just certain information out of the session without getting the entire session. It's a bit faster for us, and we'll just get the key information to be able to build the website. It will analyze both of those and say, are there properties missing, or the properties that are wrong, or are they not optimized? Do we have things that are not at the right place? Excuse me. So if that happens, you come in here and you can hit optimize, and we'll re-optimize your entire database, right? So this is interesting to do once in a while, especially if your data is old. If you just set it up, not a big deal. If you've been running for a year or two, it could be interesting to do this. Back up your data before. Everything you do, always back up your data, right? Jan is a database administrator, right? So back up your data. Always back up your data. In theory, nothing bad should ever happen. But should it ever happen, you'll be happy you have a backup of your data. Always have a backup of your data. So you can come in here and analyze some stuff and figure out what's going on, and you'll end up saving a few bytes. A few bytes on 10,000 sessions will make a difference eventually. To alleviate some of the database stuff, you can go clean up your history. So your deleted history and your session history, you can clean those out also. Because you'll know every time we modify something, there's always the history being done, entry history. So we have the history of what happened, what's going on. We can compare them. We can see, where did the compare go? There you go. You can see that it was changed today, and we changed by me, and I changed the name. Where did the name go? There's the name, there you go. The name changed. Daily routine 2. Histories, eventually you can clean them out. You can keep them for auditing purposes, but you can clean out, after a year or whatnot, you can go clean those out once in a while and do that kind of stuff. So those are always good to have. Who's ever used this to recover lost data? Yeah, nice to have. Okay, so it's always there. So if somebody comes in and, hey, why am I not connecting anymore? You can find out, it's like the SVN blame. You can figure out who did what and when and why. Right, you can have the same thing for deleted. So if I were to delete this guy here, delete. I can go view deleted, and my deletes are there. I can resurrect them at that point. Also a nice feature to have. We had a client the other day, he goes, all my sessions were deleted. Well, we looked at deleted history. Like, why did they delete them? I don't know. Somebody at the company had deleted all the sessions. So we just recovered them all, and everything was up and running again, so, which is kind of nice. I mean, you can get them back from backup, but it's much easier to undo them through here than have to do with backup. What else do we have? So creating a templates. Who's created templates before? Anybody created templates before? There you go. So templates are relatively easy. So you can create your templates. If you do an RDP template or whatnot, you can go in, create your RDP template. You can call it RDP template. It doesn't matter. And you'll usually use either the host or you'll use the IP, depending on how you want to configure them. So I usually put in the host one. Certain will have IPs and will have hosts, and off you go. And you can inherit your credentials. It will inherit for the credentials it's opening as a template from. Okay. So that's one way to quickly create those templates so that you can come here now. You can say open with. There we go. Open with template. Off you go, and your template is up there. You can open up again. Okay. What else do we got? Password impact database controlling documents. Yes. So now we have the new session types are the documentation now. So documentation replaces those old RTF, but it's not offlineable though. You will not have those offline. But if you need to put in documents with images and screenshots and whatnot of what's going on with this session, you'll want to put it in here, and it's stored in a different table. It'll only be available when you're online, but you can put in a lot of stuff here, and it won't slow down your loading your tree, you're loading your data, because it's done on demand as you need it. Okay. So this is you can go to the editor here, change them in here, set your notes as you want. You have this is what they call it's markup. So it represents a markup. It's markup. So you can go with that. You can actually see the history of your markup and who's changed and whatnot. So you have all that in there. So use that if you need to. It will save you some time. Other than that, that's more or less what I had. Anybody had questions? Yeah, go ahead. Oh.
Let's go with it.
Well, go ahead.
I have a ton, but I'll go with one.
Okay.
I discovered lately that it records every session that we connect.
Yep.
Can we add notes to this particular session we connected?
You can, yes.
Right there.
Yeah, so when you create, you can ask, where did it go? Oh, geez, okay, hang on. Information, let me go through the tab. I'll find
I'm
it.
glad to see that you look at the word like me.
It's there, you gotta find out where it is. Open, interface.
You just search, huh?
In here it's right
Or
now.
just search.
Tools.
See ways?
Where did it go? Events?
Yeah.
No?
What do you look for?
The open,
Oh, it's in logs.
open and logs, there you go. Thank you. Prompt for open command. So you can see, before you open it, prompt me for the open command, I'll put open comment. Okay, so let me just open that up. I won't open now because I don't know what machine this is, but as I open it, I can put my comment here.
Okay.
And that's gonna go in the open log.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do the same thing with the close, it's gonna go to the close log. So that log entry will have the 2 comments now on it, which you have to prompt for it.
And if it doesn't show the prompt, can I?
After the fact, I don't think you can. Let me just see, do I have another session here? I don't have sessions that have been open. Let me just do this. Let me do new entry. Let me just do a command line. Let me just do command line application. Let me do notepad. I just need something that opens. So if I open it, there we go, open it, let's close, open, close. I should have a log of that, view, logs. There we go, open there, and I cannot, can I? No, I can't change it. It would actually be interesting to be able to,
The comments tab?
The comments tab.
oh, you can in the comments? Oh. No.
Yeah, there's actually a setting that I saw in there that said allow comments editing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
All right. So
I've never actually used it, so I'm just.
Who's the developer?
Allow comment or allow.
we have a lot of allows. I don't
Yeah.
comment, maybe open
that's
comment,
true.
open,
Should find something.
Well, log.
Open
Allow
contact.
log editing, something like that. Yeah.
open embedded, open. Oh my god, open full. If it's not there, we can find it for you. But if it's not there, certainly we can add something in there. Could be interesting to have.
Log or comment.
Add comment after.
Yeah.
Log. Yeah. Log, you local connection, log off, prompt. Disable automatic. Log off, telnet, on the right. Log, DNS intelligent terminal. View usage logs, security, no. David might know better too.
That could be in the data source settings.
Could be, yes. Let's go to this setting quickly. We don't have to search this guy here.
Yeah.
The right bar.
Allow.
Allow comments, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Now, I might have to reload my data source. Yeah.
Only applies to newly created log entry.
Sorry?
Does it only apply to newly created?
No. Bet you just refresh and you'll be fine. If not. Not there.
There's a log and contact.
Yeah. Log contact support. Trying to figure out how that one works, but yeah.
Send an email.
Send an email, yes. Yes, Lavergne@devolutions.net. But good question. Yeah, you can Apparently you can, but I'm not sure how it works exactly. I've been there for 6 years now, and about 2.5 years ago, I got to the point where I do not know every line of code anymore in the app. And I do not know every feature anymore.
I understand you because I have a database system I'm developing since 2003. Sometimes when user calls me, explaining about the app and the thing, they say you developed it, I say, yeah, but that was 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So we have a lot of these features that people ask for, and the thing is, so like Dave was saying, make it usable, user-friendly, and flexible for everybody to do the things. It's not an easy task, and if we try to make it as user-friendly as possible, sometimes we miss the boat, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it right the second time. We will rework it, but yeah, so that'd be, yeah, we had a question, right, yeah?
Oh, well, actually now I got two.
Oh. Get up, actually.
You know, just piggybacking on the logs here.
Yep.
And I was just curious, is the gentleman here that, no, he's not. I was wondering about the guy that deployed that and, you know, brought his company in kicking and screaming.
Yep.
Because I'm kind of in the same situation. One of the things that the owner wants is a log of everything that is done. And this is one of the reasons why I use this tool, is because I can force that log in.
Yep.
But I guess the question is, maybe you could answer that. I know you're doing a huge deployment.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that you're forcing logging simply because you need to know what everybody is doing.
Yeah, so we actually use the before connect event, so we use a PowerShell. So we use host sessions and we use templates for everything. As part of that, if it's a production system, they're prompted with a graphical interface from PowerShell, says, hey, what is your ticket number? So it goes out there, it checks to see if it can query the CI against we use HPSM for our ticketing system, says, hey, does the CI match? It'll give you a list of it. So you can kind of go in there and validate that information. It's got a little checkbox saying, hey, you're logging into a production system, you know, things like that. That's actually, we have that set up on a before connect event. And then in the background, it's actually running, there's a CMD, I think it's invoke RDM load on comment. So that's actually how we inject it in behind the scenes. We're taking all the information the user typed in for why they're logging into that system, and it's using the PowerShell CMD list to inject it into the logs.
So are you receiving any pushback from that?
Doesn't matter.
I guess in your situation, it really would. I work with a smaller company. We're 15 employees.
It's
So-
got to come from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you
the
just have-
answer
you
is,
just
it
have
doesn't
to
matter
push
how slow it is, right? In the healthcare industry, you will do this or you don't have a job, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier for us to implement something like that. It's extra steps. We've actually done it so, because we have it so that when you open it up, the host session, you're prompted with a number of different templates. If it's VMware, you get the VMware template along with RDP. So you can choose whether you want to go to the VMware. You can choose, and with over 10,000 records,
Yep.
having an individual session for each one of those connection types, I have problems already. So that's why we're using it on the template form.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I got one
I'm
more.
gonna ask the other gentleman anyway later on, because I'm curious about how you get past that kicking and screaming, because, you know, I have a good group, I have a good team, but getting them to implement something like this, it's a great tool, but they don't want to learn something all over again. So that's
Yeah.
the difficulty that I'm having, so. And quite honestly, I forgot the other question.
As you were talking, there's one thing I forgot to mention. So the delete history is the interesting one. We've had clients, what they've done is, who's used the synchronizers here before? AD synchronizer, VMware synchronizer, that kind of stuff. So the synchronizers are great, but what happened is one individual, he had a few synchronizers going, he was testing them out, he would load his entire database, and then delete everything. Load everything, delete everything. And he did this for a few months. So his delete history got very big. He had a few million rows in there. And what happens is, as the cache is getting refreshed, as you're asking for cache, you have to ask the deleted history, has anything been deleted since I last checked? That database, that file got so big, well, we had an issue, it wasn't indexed properly, we fixed that issue. But if you're gonna do synchronizers and you're playing with them, don't play in production, go play on a different database, okay? And then when you do go to production with it, if ever you run it multiple times and delete, go clean up your history. It's just gonna stay there forever if you don't. And it's just slowing it down a little bit, but now that the index is there, it's much faster, but it got to the point where refreshing for him was like 20, 30 seconds. I was like, what's going on? And that's where the log came to us. We looked at it and we figured out what's going on, and looking at the database, like, oh, this is not great. But the reason is that he had done the synchronizers over and over again, testing them because he wanted to properly synchronize using a template, synchronize changing the template, synchronize how does he want to create these sessions, and that created issues there. So keep it in mind. Anything else?
Yeah, we're gonna take over. Yeah. I want to go back to the macros and scripting tools. Perhaps it's just that I haven't looked real close at 13 at this point. No, I see that you have different tools
here,
there. Yeah, you have install wait down.
This used to be the normal view.
Yeah.
So we tabbed it up here now because we have more things. So the remote stuff is here, some information stuff is here, attachments. So it used to be more or less like this before, like this, right? Version 12, something like this. And you had some other buttons on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you split all that up.
We split them all up, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can default which tab it shows up on. I'm not sure.
Is it any easier now to create the macros and scripting tools?
Any easier?
Any easier than, say, version 12?
The creative tools haven't really changed, no.
No. Okay.
Same thing, yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can dig into that.
How to create a macroscript tool?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not an expert on macroscript tool, but I can try.
Okay. I know I have some difficulty with it.
They're tricky depending which ones you're using. Like if you know AutoHotkey, I guess, and if you're an expert on AutoHotkey, you know how to create an AutoHotkey tool. I'm more of a command line could be interesting, PowerShell local, PowerShell remote. It depends what you want. Most of the people using these PowerScript tools, that kind of stuff, will already have a script they're running manually.
Yeah.
Like I'm running this script manually on this server via remote or via local or via whatnot. So you'll create them this way. A command line could be interesting. Once they're created, which is interesting, is you can have command line. I don't know. Who has a good command line? Deer? I don't know. So you can put in, so this can be like an MSC. All right, so you can do and go open up on a remote server. So you can have / the host name in there, that kind of stuff. The host in there, that kind of stuff. So you can have whatever command line you have in there. So when you open it up on that particular instance, it's going to fill up that command line for you. So just an example of that, I don't have any. But you can do, if you're doing it manually, we can automate it. Now, if you're not doing it manually, there's no reason to automate it. So it depends what your needs are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done this a few times with PowerShell, and I just run into a couple of quirky things. I think one of them was using I think it's coming in where I'm using the variables.
Okay.
And they're being passed to PowerShell, but PowerShell's not recognizing them properly.
It gets tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
If you have a scenario that you can't get working, contact the forum, and know Erica or one of those people at support will be able to help you out at that point. If we have a concrete example, it's relatively easy to resolve it. It might just be that there's a bug. It happens. We're not perfect. Or sometimes it's just if your environment is not configured properly, it will never work. Especially if you're doing remote PowerShell, you have to have a remote PowerShell enabled at the machine, or it will never work. So if you can't do it externally, you'll never be able to do it in RDM.
I did do that.
The remote PowerShell?
Yeah, I'm able
Yeah.
to turn on remote PowerShell now.
Yes. So if you're running your agent on the machines and you're running your RDP, you can connect via RDP and then send a local PowerShell script through the agent to run locally on that machine without having to open up remote PowerShell. So that can help you out if you don't want to do remote PowerShell. And you can't do remote PowerShell if you're going across domains over the internet. You can't do remote PowerShell; it will not work. With the agent, you can do it. So that can help you out at that point. And the agent is a small executable you can put in and off it goes. So who's using the agent? Anyone? There, 1, 2, 3. Oh, there you go. Okay. Anything else?
Concerning the refresh, is it possible to have it done automatically?
If you do an edit, if you do a right-click properties, it will do it automatically. So every action you do will refresh.
But not for the other users?
But then to do something, as soon as you do something, it'll be.
Yeah, if you do an open,
In my case.
if you say you can set open on refresh, you can say open on edit, you can do that kind of stuff.
Because often work 3, working in there, if someone does a modification,
Yeah.
there on this would click the button
Refresh.
for the 5,
Okay.
it just doesn't show.
Before the edit, it will force a refresh on that session.
Okay, and if there's a new entry, there.
It will show up, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. It will do a circle refresh of everything. You'll get the edit and the new, and they'll synchronize in, and then you open your session.
Okay, I'll play with those options,
Yeah.
because so far, if I don't think of telling the others, I did some changes.
Okay.
And if they try to open something I changed,
Yeah.
it just returns an error. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
But if it's not working, 5 minutes, yeah. So if ever it's not working properly, let us know through support, we'll look at it. But you should be fine, so this might be something interesting going on there.
Or 10, what you just need everything done.
And it's like another issue I have, and the support says it's not supposed to happen. If I close RDM and I leave all those sessions open, when I reopen it, it's supposed to recognize it.
Yeah.
It never worked on my computer. I even changed computer.
So the-
I used to work on a laptop, now I'm on the desktop, but this feature.
When
never
you
worked.
close your RDM, your open sessions don't get saved.
No,
Interesting.
no.
You might have something, an issue with your user. Your user might not be.
And it's my second computer, and
Yeah, the take-
it's been doing that since.
I would get a third computer. Wait, so no.
Maybe you
Um,
change your name. For some people,
yeah.
I think more, you just change your name.
But we'll look.
I'm using the root to
Yeah.
get myself.
Should be fine. Okay, there's something going
So
on.
that's why I never close my RDM. So if I reboot my computer 3 times in a year, it's beautiful, and I never close RDM because I don't want to lose all those
Oh, yeah, your
open
sessions,
sessions.
yeah.
That otherwise, I will have to reopen, and it will complain that it's already open.
Yeah, no. But send me an email. You have my email, and we'll look into it. Because it's not normal. It should save.
It's more apps, so whenever I use the computer, so I just open the remote app and I always get this usage on the RDM. And then I never read the servers, I have the same RDM open for months.
So there's a few minutes left. So like I said before, back up your data, please. It doesn't cost much to have a good database backup. In the database industry, they'll tell you do not have a backup unless you've tested the recovery of your backup. Who here's seen the System Minotaur? He talks about optimizing the logs, the backup logs. Anyone know? So he says, oh yeah, I put a new script in, I optimize the logs, the backup logs are much smaller now. It's much faster. It used to take hours, it only takes a few minutes now. It's like, oh cool, so how big's the log? He's like, let me go check. 0K. So yeah, well he optimized it, but he doesn't have backups anymore. So do test your backups, because whenever you need them, it's not the time to realize that you do not have backups.